Hey guys, welcome to another episode of LJ's Garage. And everyone's got their favorite list of 90s sports cars and supercars, this, that, and the other. So I decided I wanted to make a list of my favorite 90s sports cars. And yes, I know there are a lot of 90s cars out there, so I picked the ones that popped into my mind first thing, just quick list. And if you guys stay tuned, one of these cars was even in Playboy magazine. And don't worry, I've got a little bit of German cars in there, I've got some American cars, I've got some Japanese cars in there, so I've got a little bit of everything because I like to be well-rounded when it comes to cars. So I'm gonna start off with the Nissan GTR, specifically the R32, and there's not a whole lot to say about the GTR that hasn't been said. 276 horsepower, gentleman's agreement, so we don't really know what the real horsepower is. But the GTR is a twin-turbo inline-six, awesome car, great platform to make some awesome power. Another cool perk is you get to make awesome cool license plates like GT RAR. Next up, for me, is gonna be the Mazda RX-7, specifically the FD, and I just love those. I'm not a huge fan of rotary engines, but I can respect the FD, and I love the power potential that this car has. The coolest thing with it is got the twin turbo setup. One is for low RPM power, and then the other one is for the higher RPMs, but it's got a 5-speed manual, and it's just a phenomenal car. If you haven't had the chance to drive one or check one out, I certainly recommend the FD. And if that doesn't make you happy, just knowing that it has a twin turbo, it can do 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds, somewhere in that ballpark, and that's stock, so imagine the power potential. Next up, I'm gonna throw in the E39 M5. Yeah, it's a M5 with a V8, phenomenal car, 6-speed, and 384 horsepower. It's kind of hard to beat, right? I also think that E39 platform looks really good, but that might just be a personal preference. Next up is the Acura Integra Type R. I've always been a huge fan of the Type Rs just because they look super cool. Think of a car that's the Miata weight, but with 195 horsepower, so you can imagine the fun you can have there. I feel like these Japanese cars are just gateway drugs to other Japanese cars, so that leads me to my next car, the Toyota MR2. Specifically the W20, aka the baby Ferrari, or as some of you negative Nancys call it, the poor man's Ferrari. Whatever you do, don't get the naturally aspirated MR2. It is fun to drive in a sense, but you want the turbo because that's, again, Miata weight, but with 200 horsepower. The non-turbo sitting at like 130 horsepower. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do with that, but unless you had something like a Fiat 500 with that kind of power, then maybe that would be a little fun. Next up, the WRX. Yeah, I'm not gonna say a whole lot. I have mixed feelings on this one, but for some reason I just can't stop loving the Subarus. I don't know what it is. Next on the list is the GMC Cyclone, and I love this because it's basically the GMC Sonoma, but with a 6-cylinder turbo, and it makes some power. The Cyclone could do 0 to 60 in about 4.3 seconds, so yeah, that's pretty darn quick. Pretty much you had a truck that could do the quarter mile in 13.4 seconds. Those are some awesome numbers if you ask me. After that, I like the Acura NSX, the beautiful NSX. If you argue that that car is not good looking, well then something's wrong with you, because I think that car is gorgeous. You can't really hate on the NSX because it's a car that was designed to take on V8 Ferraris from that time. And it did that, it whooped booty. Of course, there's the Toyota Supra, everyone knows about that one. So again, there isn't really much that hasn't been said. I did a video recently on the new Supra, be sure to check that out. Next up is the Fairlady Z, the 300ZX. I love that because again, twin turbo V6 that made 300 horsepower. And I don't know, that's a phenomenal car. Also one that has potential for a lot of power and it'll look good driving down the road. And of course, you can't talk about sports cars or the 90s or anything without talking about the Miata. It was a fast, slow car. And if you've never driven a Miata, you won't quite understand that. But if you have driven a Miata, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So do yourself a favor, jump behind the wheel of a Miata and check out a video I just did on the MX-5. That was a phenomenal time. So again, the Miata has to be on this list. You won't be blowing the doors off anyone with 115 horsepower, but you'll be smiling, and so will the Miata. And then there's the 282 horsepower inline-6 BMW M3. And then to finish off the list, we've got the Fox Body Mustang. Beautiful car, awesome platform to take to the track. And if you can find one with the 5-liter V8, you're doing something right, so jump on that. And then, of course, there's the C5 Corvette. I did a video on exactly why I love my C5 Corvette, and so again, there's no one else or no car that is better to finish the list off with than the C5 Corvette. You really can't beat that. And that's all, folks. So thank you again for checking out another episode of LJ's Garage. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know down below what sports cars from the 90s catch your attention, or if there's any that you feel should be included on the list and why.